Welcome back to the Ignite podcast. I'm your host Brian Bell. With us today, we have Manuj Aggarwal on the pod. Manuj, would love to get an intro for the audience here.
Sure. Intro in a short is I used to be a factory worker making $2 a day in India, and this was about 30 years ago. And now I'm considered one of the global thought leaders in AI. I have 4 patents in artificial intelligence, machine learning. So I've been in technology for 30 years now, and I run my own consulting company called Tetra Noodle Technologies. And we have worked with hundreds of startups, building their products, bringing them to market, helping them grow. And we have also worked with Fortune 500 companies like Microsoft and IBM and Pearson Education. So overall, the work that we have done with my company, the technology that we have built, collectively, it has impacted over 10 million lives and produced over $500 million in value for our clients. So that's a little bit of a story
Wow,
we have. Yeah.
what a story! I mean, it comes out so effortlessly, but a 30-year journey from making
Mhm.
$2 a day.
That's right.
Wow, and I can't empathize quite as much. I grew up poor as well and had a kind of a broken family, but
Hmm.
Um, what was that like? I mean, what was I remember the moment for me, specifically when it was like, okay, I got to do something with my life here, right? It's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
going in the right direction. I was a
yeah.
sophomore
Hmm.
in high school, expelled from school, sitting there, like, what am I doing with my life? Where's it
Hmm.
going? What was that
Yeah,
moment for you?
yeah,
You're making $2 a day in a factory.
yeah.
Like, what was that?
Yeah, it was very similar. Like, as you go through, like in that situation, obviously your mind is so clouded and you have no idea what to do, but you get a certain urge, okay, you want to do something else with your life, like there's more out there. And then you just need like some sort of an inspiration. And my inspiration came from at lunch hour in the factory, I was flipping through some business magazines, and in those business magazines there were stories about these entrepreneurs who made it big and created empires. And I was like, these people look like me, and they have the same face, the same body. Like, what is so
Yeah.
different about them that I am here and they are there? Obviously at that time it didn't make sense, but that was the inspiration. And it
Mhm.
sort of triggered that thought that in order for you to experience a different life, you need to do something different. You need to create more value. You need to learn new skills. And that's what pushed me towards technology and software. So that was the moment when, everything changed for me.
That's amazing. So you knew early on, looking at these magazines, hey, these are people who look just like me. They're very successful in technology. I'm gonna I'm gonna try to do that as well. I'm gonna try to emulate that.
Actually, yeah, actually, no. I mean, there, we are talking 30 years ago in India, and so stories that I read were not from tech entrepreneurs. They were like in real estate, retail, other industries. But
Yeah.
it just showed me that something is possible. Like if you work on something, it's possible. The vehicle that you adopt should align with your interests. And luckily for me, software and technology really resonated with me. I really had fun with it. So yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what was the next step? So this how old were you when you're flipping through how old was Manoj when he's flipping through the
that,
magazine?
that was around like 16 and a half, something
Okay,
like
so high
that.
school, yeah, about the same for
Yeah,
me. Is about 15,
yeah,
15 and a
yeah,
half, almost 16.
yeah.
And then you started studying harder, getting into the best school in India. Like what were kind
No,
of the next
no, no.
steps?
I mean, well, the first thing was, okay, I want to learn a little bit about computers. So I had no money, and computer education was quite a bit expensive. So first I enrolled in, like, a couple of very shady corners institute. Like, one guy teaching, like, programming. He doesn't know anything himself, and that's all I can afford. And then I realized, if I really want to do this, I need some professional education. So I inquired about a 1 year course, and the fee was more than my yearly salary. So I was like, okay, this is not going to work. So I waited for a year and a half, worked hard, collected, like saved up enough money to pay for the 1 year program. And then I went back a year and a half later, enrolled myself, and and got that education. And then along the way, I knew that in order to continue, I'll have to work. So I took up more jobs in computers. So started working earlier on to pay for the fee, and so that's how it progressed.
And then somehow you ended up in Vancouver, where I'm also
Yeah,
Canadian. I was born in
yeah.
Seattle, but a lot of my
Mhm,
family is in Vancouver.
mhm.
What was that journey like, and what was the kind
Yeah.
of impetus for that?
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, it was all thanks to the same computer course, because I met my future wife, my girlfriend at that time, in the same course, and she was Canadian, so she had moved to India, and we met there. And long story short, I followed her to Canada. So that's the story there.
Oh, okay. So it was like, okay, the girl
Yeah,
interest, the love interest, is now moving to Canada. So
exactly. Yeah,
I'm going to go as well. And then,
yeah,
did you
yeah,
get your degree in India and then come
yeah.
to
That's right.
British Columbia? Okay, nice.
Correct. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, what were kind of the first, like, you landing in British Columbia? What were some of those first career experiences? This must have been the '90s at this point, right? Yeah,
Yeah, I landed in 1998. I mean, the first thing is, like, the culture shock that you experience coming from a very, very different culture and background, and not understanding the sort of the dialect, the nuances, the inside jokes kind of expressions. So earlier on, I realized, like, I could speak English, but I couldn't communicate as effectively. So I really needed to understand that aspect, um, and then uh, also understand a little bit of a history about North America, Canada. How did it come about? What were the struggles that people went through, because that's what shapes our culture. And then obviously, uh, both in US and Canada, like, we not only meet people who grew up here, but we meet people from all over the world. So you really had to become like a global citizen very, very quickly. And that was my first experience, like, technology and business and all that. Obviously you learn on the job, but it's more important to learn about people and communicate with them. So that was my focus, arriving here in Canada
Hmm.
first.
And how did you go about doing that? That's an interesting challenge, right? I mean, I could just
Yeah, yeah,
imagine the inverse, me going to India and just landing there and just being like, okay, like, I gotta, yeah, a lot of people speak English, but there's different customs, ways of doing things,
yeah,
different kind of, it's a different culture. So how did you go
yeah.
about acclimating yourself?
One thing I realized, like, working in a factory, you end up having a thick skin, meaning, you don't really care about uh, what people are thinking about you, or how they are laughing at you, or even if you have a stupid question, you can just still ask. And the worst that can happen is they'll say, "Why don't you know this?" So I just got curious and asked people, "Hey, what did you mean by that? Like, you were you made that joke in the meeting. I couldn't really understand. What did you mean by that?"
Mm,
And so these kind of things really clarified. And then obviously, you watch a lot of TV, you watch a lot of movies, so you
right.
observe how people sort of interact. And then one thing actually did help was, even earlier on in the early 2000, there were a lot of Indians in the software industry, in the IT
Right.
sector.
Yeah.
So that also helped, like, sort of have a little bit of a buffer, um, to lean on, to say, hey,
You had some
how do you?
fellow
Yeah, exactly.
Indians that could, like, tell you, like, hey, I
Yeah,
dealt with this and here's how you handle that, or
exactly.
hey,
Yeah,
in Canada, they don't say it like that. They say it like
yeah,
this, or yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you feel like Indian culture is more direct or less direct than Canada?
Um, Actually, it's a little bit more direct, but again, US is very direct. So earlier on, when I started working, throughout my career, it has happened that majority of the work that I've done is in US, even though I live in Canada. I
Yeah.
mean, and that's
Yeah.
understandable. I mean, US is the biggest market in the world, and I find US to be very, very direct. I mean, almost too direct. Canada is very, people are too polite. But then still direct. In India, the social norms are very different. So you really, um, at every given point you are very submissive. India is a very submissive culture and very hierarchical, so you always address other people as sir or madam, or so it's a very formal culture.
More
I found
deference to your elders and
exactly,
to people
exactly.
who are above you in the hierarchy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So coming to Canada, it was a little bit more sort of refreshing that you don't have to be that formal still, as compared
Mm,
to US. You have, it's quite mellow as compared to US, in my opinion.
yeah. More
Yeah,
egalitarian, meritocratic.
yeah.
Yeah. Some of those principles that we have here in the West.
Hmm.
Um, Tell us about your transition into AI and cybersecurity. Like, what?
Yeah.
How did you find yourself in that realm?
Yeah, I mean, what I know about success and progress is, once you find your passion, you always want to uh, improve yourself. You want to learn new things every day. Out of just sheer curiosity, not even like ambition. You want to know, okay, hey, how are these things done? So I find myself involved in uh, every new technology that comes out, like blockchain and AI and all of that. And on the other side, coming from where I come from, I always try to get involved in projects which have some sort of an impact on humanity. So I have done a lot of work in education. I've done a lot of work in healthcare, because those kind of things directly impact everyday people's lives. And so when you get involved in education, obviously AI came up, because AI impacts how we can teach students, how we can personalize learning. And when you deal with education or healthcare, and when you deal with lots and lots of data, security is paramount. So um, uh, you know uh, everything sort of happened organically, but happened organically because I made deliberate effort to get involved in those type of projects that can lend itself to having me learning these new technologies and new ways of doing things.
Yeah, I love that. So, what? Looking back, I mean, you've been doing this Tetra Noodle Technologies. Tell us about what Tetra Noodle is and kind of its
Mhm.
evolution over the years, and some of the
Yeah,
projects that
yeah.
you're proud of.
Yeah. So what happened was, when I landed in Canada, I got a job fairly quickly, like within a first month, I got a decent job. But then I also got laid off about 4 times in 3 years, because when I got the job, when I landed, it was the dot-com boom time, and they were like,
Mm,
things were just nuts at that time. Like you could get a job anywhere. But then dot-com bust happened, then September 11th happened, then the Gulf War started. So all of these things led to, like a number of layoffs, and I realized that job security is sort of like a myth. It doesn't matter where you live. And that's what led me to starting my consulting company, Tetra Noodle Technologies. Back then it was called Spider Communications. um, I'm not good at sales or marketing, so when I was thinking about a name, I was like, okay, World Wide Web, let's pick Spider as our name. So the idea was to start doing the same work that I was doing in a job, but with more clients, working with multiple startups, and diving into multiple industries. Um, and then slowly I realized that I was quite good at what I was doing in terms of building technology. And also, through my experience in the business world earlier on, I had understanding of business. I had understanding of how scalable systems are built, because in a factory you cannot just make one gadget and say, okay, this is a factory. You have to have scalable systems producing tens of thousands of gadgets every day on assembly lines. And what happens when a component in an assembly line fails? The entire factory shuts down. So these kind of things were already in my mind. So that led me to the first major project with Microsoft. So they were building an internal CRM system to serve their enterprise clients, which was about, at that time, $40 billion worth of business every year.
wow,
And
this
so
is the precursor to Dynamics.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So and they had Dynamics, but interestingly enough, for their internal, like larger clients, they had a very complex system which was using Dynamics and SAP, but
Yeah.
then their marketing teams had new ideas like, okay, hey, our customer has bought 10,000 Windows licenses, so let's give them free 50 Office licenses. And so these kind of like marketing
Bundles and
campaigns.
offers and yeah.
Yeah. So they needed like something custom built for themselves. So that was another like way of looking at the world, where I come from a startup world where people have limited budgets, and they have limited time spans. But here at Microsoft, like, they are dealing with tens of millions of dollars on a small, even on a small project budget, and the complexity that you have to deal with, the number of teams, number of sort of stakeholders that you have to deal with. That was a very different way of doing business. And sort of I saw how the small companies work and giants like Microsoft work. um, and that was a really great experience, having delivered that. And then I worked on the public facing retail sites for Microsoft, and realized the scale of the number of shoppers that come to Microsoft sites to buy these products. It's just mind boggling.
Yeah.
And then that led me to working with Pearson Education, building their global education system. So once again, millions and millions of students across the world, how to scale that system, how to go from zero to $400 million annual revenue, and what does it take to get there. Those were unique experiences. And then working on projects which got recognition from Obama and Bill Gates, like those type of things were surreal, because at the end of the day, we were just like building technology. And when you release it out in the world, the kind of impact it has, and the kind of people it sort of puts it in, it connects you with somebody like Obama indirectly, and say, oh, I did not realize, like, when I was working on this piece of code, this is the kind of impact it's going to have. And
Mm.
so that realization of how technology has the ability to change the world and make such impact, like that was something that I cannot even get over today.
Yeah, and I wish everybody listening, including my kids someday, and just everyone has that realization that a lot of your fulfillment in this world, I think, is kind of tied to what you create of value for the world.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I think that's what you're kind of driving at, which is so much of how people go about their daily lives is just kind of just punching the clock and just whatever, and not thinking about what do I want to create for the world. And for
Yeah.
me, and anybody who listens to this podcast or knows me or uh, would know this already, so it's kind of repeating myself. But when I washed out of Wall Street, I worked really hard to get there, and I hated it. And then I just kept asking myself, well, if I didn't have to work, like, what would I
Hmm.
do?
Hmm. Yeah.
It was actually the wrong question, and I
Hmm.
realized that now, like almost 20 years later, it's not what you would do; it's what you would create.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I had the wrong framing, which was I was looking for a job to fulfill me, which
Hmm.
no job will ever fulfill you, right? You got to
Yeah.
find the thing that you want to create for the world that's valuable for
Yeah.
the world, that the world needs, that you like creating, that doesn't feel like work for you. Um,
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah, and for some people that's software, for some people it's running sales teams, or
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
for some people it's
Yeah.
doing a podcast
Yeah. Exactly.
and
And
investing in
then,
startups. But
yeah,
yeah,
and then you can also layer a couple of things on top of it, like, as I said, like, I'm passionate about technology, but I'm also passionate about, like, everyday lives of people, so healthcare and education. So you can, like, actually marry multiple concepts that you're passionate about, and
yeah,
that creates even more impact, because now you are like dealing with two different aspects of your own personality.
exactly. So let's talk about some of those passions and projects that you've done over the years and in those fields. I would love to hear
Sure.
some of the
Yeah.
stories.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so the very first one, this is the first AI project that I was involved in. So this is about personalized learning. What happens in classrooms today, whether you are in higher education or K to 12, every student in the classroom gets the same curriculum. So but in, let's say, you have a classroom of about 30 students. We know statistically, a couple of students will be way advanced than the rest of the classroom, and some people will be needing more help. So in a typical classroom, a teacher will not be able to pay personalized attention to each student. But with AI, you can actually determine, who can progress faster, who already understands the subject, who needs extra help. So we created that system to assist the teacher and provide highly personalized education for the entire classroom, at a personalized base. So that was the first technology that we've built. It's a patented technology. It got sold to another unicorn startup. Then the next one was using artificial intelligence and computer vision and 3D printing to help people with joint pains. So we
Mm.
created a custom orthotic product. A lot of people have to stand on their feet all day, like doctors, nurses, coffee baristas. And sometimes what happens is, because of the way that their feet are constructed, they get joint pain. So some people have high arches or flat feet or all that. So we set out to create custom orthotic devices that will fit perfectly to their feet and their shoes. So we created some algorithms which could take the images of their feet using their mobile phone and then convert that into a 3D model. And that 3D model gets fed into a 3D printer to print out a orthotic device that goes into, sits into their shoe, under their feet, and provides the right support at the right pressure points, which helps with joint pains. And that technology got sold to a $43 billion company, German company, and they sold it under their brand, Dr. Scholl's. And then another project
Wow.
that we did on the education side, is that specifically in higher education, almost 30% of the students drop out of their degree programs in the first 2 years. And the reason being that most students find that um, the topics that they picked were of no interest to them, or they were too difficult for them. And so what we did was we created almost like a Netflix type of a system, which takes all the historical data from hundreds of thousands of students and then creates a model, which determines, like, based on the current interest of a particular student, what will be the right courses for them to take. So instead of sort of just going by gut feel or, friends and families recommendations, this is like a data backed system. So the results were really great. Like
It
the
was
dropouts
terrible. I
rate.
remember in
Yeah,
college 20, 25 years ago, it's like, here's this
mm,
big, thick packet of courses.
yeah,
And then you're trying to figure out, when they are, where they're at, what they're
mhm,
about.
yeah,
And yeah, it would take like, I don't know, days, if not
yeah,
weeks,
yeah,
to kind of
yeah,
sift through
exactly.
everything. And then you had no idea really what you wanted because you're 18,
Hmm.
19 years old.
Yeah, yeah,
And you're like, I don't know. And
yeah. Mm,
in hindsight, if I would have taken like a sociology course, I probably would have majored in that. Um,
mhm,
I was like, I didn't even know what sociology was. So I'll just kind of
yeah,
take random classes, I guess, that kind of look interesting. But
yeah, yeah,
yeah, using AI or algorithms to match students
yeah,
to coursework. And I liked your story too about there's a bell curve in any class, but it's actually a multi-dimensional bell curve, right?
yeah.
Because
Hmm.
there's different learning styles, there's different interests. You might teach, I don't know, like calculus using basketball for like say my
Exactly.
son or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
But like maybe for someone else, it's baseball or some other sport. Maybe they're into rocket ships or whatever it is.
Mm, mm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so these were some of the interesting projects, and the last one that I mentioned, that's the one that actually got recognition from Bill Gates and Obama, because they were passionate about education, and actually Bill Gates Foundation invested in that project.
Oh, amazing.
Mhm.
So let's talk about some of your current work. Like what are some of the projects you're currently working on? What kind of projects are you looking to work on, and kind of what's exciting you right now?
Yeah. So once again, now AI is on everybody's mind. So we've been working with AI for a while now. So we are helping a lot of companies understand what AI means. So, for example, we are using AI to help a music school. So they're an online music school, and they have students in 150 countries. So they have a unique way of teaching music through geometrical patterns. So we use AI to sort of scale that and help them teach music to
Hmm.
kids. Another one is, there are a lot of businesses, small and big. What they want to do is they have collected so much knowledge over the years, over the decades, specifically the leaders in the company, the executives in the company. They have so much experience, so many insights, and they feel frustrated that they are not able to like really mentor or share that insight with everybody in the organization. So with private gpt, private llms, we are taking what is in their mind and sort of making it available in a very seamless manner to their employees, to their customers. So these are some of the custom LLM projects that we are working on. And then on the larger scale side, like we have a clients like T-Mobile, which are trying to like really embrace AI and unlock their enterprise value. I mean, their annual revenues are $70 billion, and so imagine if we can make a 10% increase in that, just using the same data, so using the same systems that they have, but just making them more productive using AI. So these are the kind of
Yeah,
things that we are focused on now.
I love this. So, kind of in that vein, do you think AI accelerates GDP, or is it more deflationary than it is inflationary? So, in other words, does it
Absolutely.
generate more
Mm,
revenue or does it
yeah.
save more costs?
It is going to be both. It is going to be both. It is going to generate more revenue because it is going to make each one of us at least 4 to 5 times more productive. And if we look at GDP, it is basically number of people in a country multiplied by their productivity, right? So if we increase the productivity, GDP is going to rise. And as more machines sort of come into the picture, less errors happen, faster execution happens, cost savings will come in. So it is going to be an
Yeah.
exponential impact from both sides.
Yeah. And that's with just current technology, right? These
Yeah.
large language models are getting 10x more complex every generation, which is every roughly 12 to 18 months. We don't know that there's limits yet to how many trillions of parameters we can put into these models, right? So,
Mm.
and then you have kind of you have the agent sub agent thing, right? Where you start spinning up all these sub agents that are really narrow, call it lesser language models, but are very good at certain tasks, and they're kind of managed by the kind of the general agent. And so really everybody could get millions of times more productive. There's really no
Mhm.
limit if you think about it. If
Mhm.
you can spin up, the analogy I like to use is imagine you're, Satya Nadella of Microsoft. You can spin up the resources of hundreds of thousands of people to build any kind of software in the world, right? And Microsoft
Mhm.
practically builds every kind of software in the world. So in the future, in the near future, and this is happening before our eyes, anybody has the resources of Microsoft to build anything they
Absolutely,
want,
absolutely,
right?
absolutely. I tell people, there's gonna be in very short amount of time, like maybe 5 to 7 years, there's going to be public companies with one employee, which is the CEO, because everything else will be done by AI.
I love that, and I'm
Yeah.
already seeing this as an
Mm.
investor in early stage startups.
Mm.
And I was just reading an article today about this. About there's lots of AI apps out there now on the App Store that just one solo person generating millions of revenue.
Mm.
And I think you're just going to see more and more and more of that. And so I'm excited as an early stage investor. I think it creates a lot of opportunity for me as this very early stage pre-seed investor. And I think you're seeing this over the last few decades kind of play out in the early stage venture capital game. It used to be, hey, raise $10 million, go build a website, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
now
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, you know, I don't know how to code, but I know that there's this problem in the world that I want to solve, and I'll just talk to AI
Yeah,
and we'll work together to solve it. And that's a
yeah, and
whole
that,
radical
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
barrier, just destroying creation that we have in our hands.
Yeah, and one more thing, as you're describing it, I want to highlight to people listening in is that as as these technical barriers break down, what will become more valuable is our humanity, our ability to understand other people, understand their pain points, understand what the world needs. So I always advise people, get, as people get worried, oh, AI is going to take away my job or whatever. I tell them that machines will be able to think faster and better than you, but they will never be able to feel faster and better than you. So focus on your communication skills, focus on understanding, the pain points of people, and then the rest of the mechanics of how to solve that problem, AI can really help you solve that very efficiently.
Yeah, it breaks down those barriers to creation, right? And the example I love to give is my spouse who left her corporate job to write children's books this year, right? And
Mm,
so she's using generative AI to generate first drafts of the story and generate first drafts of the art. There's still a lot of like last mile stuff that she has to do with a graphic
mhm,
artist and with the
mhm,
publisher to kind of get the
mhm,
book put together. But now
mhm,
she's creating something in the world that
mhm,
before she just wouldn't have been able to do, right?
mhm,
And so
mhm.
I think everybody's now going to be able to figure out what they like to create.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, that's why I started the podcast, right? Because I realized like best part of my job is just talking to interesting people
Mhm.
like you that are out there building stuff with AI, and it's like, well, I should just kind of formalize that in a podcast, right?
Yeah, yeah,
There'll probably be
yeah.
other things I'd love to maybe create music or video games or
Yeah,
some other
music is going to
things.
be huge. Yeah. um I'm glad you brought up music because I believe, as humans we are, basically we are creators and we are, deep thinkers. And this has happened in the past as well, like during the 1500s in Europe. The Renaissance period was about 300 years of, like, really focused on creative work, art, music, even to the extent that musicians and artists were at the top of the society. Like
Yeah.
they were the main people in king's courts and all that. So as machines sort of take over the thinking part of our existence, I think the creative part of humanity will become much more prominent. So learning music and art and these type of creative endeavors, podcasting, I mean, these are, I think these are going to be like really, really huge moving forward.
Yeah, I'd love to, work with AI to create another Beatles album. What if they
Hmm.
would have stayed together? What would their next album sound like?
Yeah.
And like, let's go create that together. And
Yeah, yeah,
no, I don't think they would have done this. They were kind of experimenting more with that kind of genre or that sort of instrument. Or
yeah.
what would it sound like if Dr. Dre and the Beatles made a hip hop album together?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like you
yeah.
could just like have, and
Exactly.
just the sky's the limit on what we can create for each other,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
And I was
yeah.
talking to somebody about this, and they said something funny. It was like, well, maybe we'll all go into our own like echo chambers, and nobody will come out because in your own AI generated content universe, everything's perfectly suited to you, and so you literally couldn't share it with anybody else because it's so abstractly perfect for you that nobody else would relate to it. And I don't know if that's the case.
That's not the case. That's not
Yeah.
the, because the thing is that when people say these kind of things, that tells me they haven't stepped outside of their existence yet. Because when you go out there, you will find that at the core we are all very, very similar. Yes, I may not be interested in a rap album, maybe, but maybe I'm interested in, an image of Dr. Dre with somebody else. Like, I one of my business associates, he actually created a Frank Sinatra song using AI, and he used that to send his Christmas greetings. And so,
Oh,
that,
that's cool.
yeah, yeah. So it's like, the thing is, you may not like the artist, but you can appreciate the art behind it, the thought process behind it. When I go to Paris and see, the Mona Lisa, I may not understand all the nuances of the painting and the brush strokes, but I can appreciate, how it has captured the attention of the entire world. So that's not going to be an echo chamber. I believe that we will experience new experiences. We'll be able to share new experiences to the level of degree and creativity that we haven't seen before. At the same time, we'll be able to share them with other people with similar, and not even similar interests, but we may be able to help other people discover similar interests that they think they didn't have.
Yeah, like I created this video game that's perfect for me, and now I just spent time playing it and working with AI to create it, and I really love it, and I want to share it with the world, and I put it out on Steam, and I now sell this thing that I co-created with
Mm-hmm.
AI for
Mm-hmm.
$10 a copy, and all of a sudden it sells 1 million copies, and I made $10 million, and that's the kind of abundance I
Yeah, yeah,
think we're
yeah.
kind of heading into in this kind of post
Exactly,
scarcity, post
exactly.
capitalist society where the means of creation and the means of production are basically asymptoting to zero, which is shifting the
Mm-hmm.
supply curve to infinity, right?
Yeah, exactly,
And
exactly.
now, like everybody can just create things on a whim, Like I'm
Yeah, yeah,
creating a lot of the articles you read that I write are co-written with Chat GPT. I'll get like an
absolutely.
idea. It'll be
Uh-huh.
like, oh, is like this idea is AI going to be deflationary for SaaS multiples? It's
Yeah,
an
yeah, yeah.
idea I heard on the All In podcast recently. I want to write an article on that, and
Yeah,
I'll use Chat GPT to kind of outline it and kind of write it, but then it'll basically be me. I don't know, with godlike powers and incepting it
yeah,
into the
exactly.
world, right? Like
Yeah,
if you think about it,
yeah.
like AI gives us like godlike powers.
Absolutely, absolutely. And moreover, you become creative. You can create these things easier, faster, but also distribution, because that's a major bottleneck in every business. Like, how do you find your clients? How do you distribute it? And now with so much happening on social media and all of that, even the distribution becomes easier. And at the end of the day, that's all AI as well. So
Yeah, I can't wait to be able to hire an AI agent and be like, go find me pre-seed startups with this sort of.
yeah,
Here's what I kind of look for, and then
yeah,
it
yeah,
goes lines them up for me like a chief
yeah,
of
yeah,
staff
yeah,
would, or like
yeah.
a very senior MBA type person would in a venture firm. And they're like,
Exactly,
okay, boss,
exactly.
here's the top 10 startups that are raising right now
Mm-hmm.
that fit your
Mm-hmm.
criteria, and I've already
Yeah,
you know went out, gathered the materials, scored everything for you, and here's all the deal memos of why or why not you should invest. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
the kind of world we're
Absolutely.
going to live in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You're
What do you
spot on.
think? What's the over under? I'd be curious. Like, what's your bet on 50% probability, call it, that a Fortune 500 company, the first year that a Fortune 500 company has nothing but the executive staff on it. So not just like the CEO founder,
Mhm.
but there's like a head of marketing, there's a head of product, and
Yeah, yeah.
so on, and
I
that's it. And
think,
it's like a
yeah,
5 to 10 person company with a multi-billion-dollar
yeah,
valuation. What do you
yeah.
think the over under is on that?
I think optimistically by 2030, pessimistically 2035.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
would tend to agree with that. It's probably somewhere in the
yeah,
2030s.
yeah.
And that's pretty radical. I mean, it's only 10 years
I know.
away.
Yeah, but here is the thing, right? Like I give this example to people. 1998 was the first time I logged into the internet, and 1995, and 1998 I applied for my first entry level job as a junior programmer, and within 3 years the world had changed so much. If I didn't apply using the internet or email with a Word resume, I couldn't apply for a entry level job. It took 3 years.
Mm,
So imagine like how our world has changed in the past. Like iPhone was released 2006 or 2007, and the world changed in again 2 3 years because everybody started using mobile apps. So and we can see that again. Like Chat GPT was released last 2022, November 2022,
yeah,
and the whole world has already sort of shifted in so many ways, right?
yeah,
So 10 years is a long time in terms of technology cycles.
it is. I mean, it's and it tends to be kind of the nice round number for what sociologists call cultural drift. When a new
Hmm.
technology kind of comes in, it does take 10 or 15 years to proliferate and completely change our institutions and our culture and how we do things. I mean, look at mobile, right? Mobile came out, you could argue, when the iPhone was released, 2007 or 8, but we didn't really feel the full effects of mobile for probably 5 to 10 years, and really call it
Hmm.
10 when everybody was
Hmm.
using Uber.
Yeah, yeah,
Everyone had a mobile device that was, had internet access and could order food and
Yeah.
order dog walkers or whatever,
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
else you can do on mobile phones.
Exactly.
What about and I personally would love to know, what do you think the future of venture capital is, right? Because if you think about venture capital, what my job is, right, is to take scarce money and put it into scarce startups, right? And
Yeah.
so when do you think venture capital ceases to exist, right? Because if the power of creation asymptotes to zero, right, the supply of the ability to create things.
See, in my opinion, it doesn't matter whether it's venture capital or any other industry. At the end of the day, uh, most businesses are basically connecting the supply with demand, right? There is a finite resource that somebody needs, and there is a middle person who understands both worlds, and they connect the dots, right? Now, to do the kind of things that we are doing today, like to make an app or to create like a website or technology, those costs may go down. But as we know, humans are super ambitious. If the costs go down, we will just embark
Demand
on
more.
bigger,
That's the
demand
Jevons
more. Yeah,
paradox, right? And
yeah,
and I
yeah,
think you've seen that in VC over the last 10 to 25 years. Is the cost of capital has gone down, the capital required has gone down, but all that's done is just create
yeah,
more SaaS
exactly.
companies than ever, more unicorns than ever, more startups than ever. I mean, we have a little blip here in
Yeah,
2023 after kind of the hangover from ZERP
yeah,
and all the 2021
yeah,
mania.
yeah,
But I think the
yeah.
long-term trend, if you follow it, is just less capital intensive and more
Yeah,
startups.
and not only that, but even if you look at the ambition, like the scale of the projects, like again, we cannot compare a startup with somebody like Elon Musk, but the ideas are getting bigger and bigger. Like who would
Hmm.
have thought? Oh, there's a guy whose ambition in life is to go to Mars and take the whole
And
humanity
might
with
do
him.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
and is on track, probably in the
yeah,
next 10 or 20 years to do it. It's pretty. I
yeah.
just finished the biography actually. Did you read it?
Mm. Not yet, not
Oh,
yet.
it's so good. I was listening to it
Mm,
as I kind of walk and jog around the neighborhood.
mm,
It's
mm.
very good. It makes
Yeah,
me,
so that
yeah.
inspires others to take on, like, more ambitious projects which need more capital and all of that, right?
Oh, I like that. I like that. So there's more wealth than ever,
Hmm. Hmm.
which means we come up with bigger goals.
Yeah,
It's sort
exactly.
of it's sort of the human condition, isn't it?
Yes, yes,
We
yes, yes.
never run out of
Absolutely.
dreams and
Yeah.
things to dream about.
Yeah, I mean, simple
Yeah.
example, like, the first computer I bought was like, I think, like a 386, and it used to run the email application the same speed as it, like right now, I have like 16 cores on my PC. It feels the same because the programs are more complex, they are more
Yeah.
powerful. It's the same story. We make more money every year, but then it feels like, oh, we want to make more, and so every aspect of life, humans are just the same, right?
Yeah, I mean, and really, sky's the limit, right? And space is the limit, right?
Hmm.
Going to Mars will cost us trillions of dollars, right?
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
Guess what? We'll want to go to Europa or some other
Yeah,
moon
yeah,
around
yeah,
Jupiter,
exactly.
and we'll be
Yeah,
like, okay,
exactly.
well, let's go to Alpha Centauri. That's the next closest
Yeah,
star.
yeah, yeah, exactly,
We'll
exactly.
just kind of keep inventing stuff. I think if we
Yeah,
sped up with this ion drive at a certain kind of ratio, I think we could get there in 3 years.
yeah,
We would,
absolutely.
like we'll never run out of things as long as we don't
Exactly,
blow ourselves up, which
exactly,
seems
exactly.
like it could be a possibility. But
I have a different take on that. Like, I think evolution, I think we put too much faith and too much power in our hands, but nature, I mean, we forget that we are part of nature, and it's not us driving nature, nature is driving us.
ooh, I
uh,
love this. I love
yeah,
this. This reminds me of sort of the universal unified field of consciousness, right? We're all
yeah,
part of the universe, right? The universe is
exactly, yeah,
manifesting our
absolutely.
consciousness collectively
Mm,
to
mm.
understand itself,
Yeah, exactly,
which may
exactly.
be why we don't see any aliens out there, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
uh, I love that. I see the Buddha statue behind you.
Yes,
Tell
yes,
us about
yes.
that.
Yeah, Buddha. I mean, my like my even when I was in high school, like I got into spirituality and learning about consciousness. And since then, I've gone deeper and deeper. I meditate every day, twice a day.
What kind of
So
meditation is it?
it's a guided meditation from Mind Valley. It's 6 phase meditation. I have tried transcendental as well. So I mean, any kind of
I do
meditation,
TM
really.
twice a day.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I love
So
it. Yeah,
any kind of meditation will
yeah.
work. It's basically just like sort of really opening up your mind towards these hidden layers that exist all around us, and we are not able to see it. And then when I read about Buddha, he was basically the the best neuroscientist that ever lived. Like, he actually dove into the world of the mind and connected the dots with the universe. And so the idea is, if you bring those ideas into things like AI, you get a very different perspective on how to utilize this technology. So it's not just about automating things faster and better, it's about actually um, impacting the human consciousness. Like,
Mm,
it's actually an extension of our consciousness, which will help us observe and explore the universe even faster and better. That
yeah,
is part of evolution
right.
in a way, right?
Yeah, and there's so much anthropomorphizing AI. I don't think I said that right, but um, you know, AI is, like you said, is an extension of ourselves, but it doesn't have the same uh, biological evolutionary constraints that we were evolved in,
Mm-hmm.
like on the
Mm-hmm.
savannah of Africa, with
Yeah,
limited
yeah,
food and water, social cooperation, and yada yada yada.
yeah, yeah,
It'll have a completely different mind and intelligence than ours,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it'll probably be uh, you know probably very super rational,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
and very it will understand things in a multidimensional way that we can't even understand, right? Because it makes the
Exactly. Yeah,
connections uh, from one idea to every other idea.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And we
And I
can only
think
do that like 7 plus or minus 2, right?
yeah, I think it will actually the very interesting point you have raised, because I believe humans have been really our advantage is language, because we can communicate with each other, but also disadvantage is language, because we get into all these messes in our own head with other people because of language. So as we learn from AI to rely more on feelings, emotions, our heart, we will be able to bypass the limitations of language and just connect those dots, as you mentioned, like between different paradigms, just by feeling it, because
Mm,
our emotional senses are hundreds of thousands of times more powerful than our like
yeah.
mental ability.
Well, and I think you touched on something really interesting there, which is a lot of our misunderstandings come down to a disagreement about the allocation of resources and
Mhm.
misunderstandings about the way how we're communicating, what we're communicating to each other,
Exactly,
and a
exactly.
lack of empathy.
Yeah, yeah.
So like AI kind of solves at least the first two, and then
Hmm.
probably coaches us on the third one, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Especially if you're kind of like a student of like Kurzweil, where he basically says, "Hey, we'll merge with our machines,
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
we'll have these." I've been playing Cyberpunk 2077 because I got a new computer. Yeah, I play like an hour or two of video games every day,
Mhm.
just for fun, as evidenced by all the video
Yeah,
game
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
behind me. But in this like, it's dystopian in nature, but in this kind of near future, we all have these cybernetic implants, and we can literally
Mhm.
connect to our
Mhm.
computers, and it can help us understand things and download knowledge, kind of like the Matrix. And but they
Yeah.
have a very dystopian view of how that kind of turns out. And I think a lot of our kind of sci-fi and media and content has a dystopian view, but because I think that sells better and it's just more
Mhm.
entertaining. But I think the inverse is probably true, where it's actually pretty utopian, and there's a dawning of new spiritualism in our society and humanity.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I don't think we destroy ourselves. I'm also a very techno optimist
Yeah. Yeah.
in that vein.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with that, and I think AI is the next phase of evolution, which was inevitable, in my opinion. If there are aliens out there, I think they also take similar evolutionary path.
Yeah, and so where are they? Are they just, or is it the Prime Directive from Star Trek, where they just have this like cloaking device around the solar system that
Um,
prevents any evidence shooting into our solar system, or what is it?
I mean, if you want to get scientific and all, we can see that the probability of somebody reaching across those distances is so minuscule. Like even if people are looking for each other,
Well,
um,
I think the assumption there, the flawed assumption that people make with kind of like a Fermi equation, is that they're applying current technologies,
yeah,
right, to it,
yeah, yeah,
and probably what it really is that the societies are so beyond our comprehension, or so behind our ability to detect them, that the probability of the timing being correct with the space being
exactly,
correct, like Alpha
yeah,
Centauri, like in a radio cone coming out from Alpha
yeah,
Centauri, and it only takes, I don't know, what is it, 4 light years or 8 light years,
yeah, yeah,
and they're intelligent life right at the right time,
yeah, yeah,
13.7 billion years right into
yeah,
the creation of the universe. I mean, the
yeah,
probability of that is zero, but I think what's happening is there's just super advanced, there's an intergalactic, multi-galaxy society out there, then they're just hiding themselves from us because they
yeah,
can,
yeah,
because they're so
yeah,
much
yeah,
more
yeah,
powerful. It'd be
yeah.
like us hiding ourselves from ants,
Exactly, exactly.
ants down in like the remotest corner of the earth, and
Yeah,
we're going to keep it a secret that we exist to them.
yeah, yeah,
Of
exactly.
course we could do that
Yeah,
as
yeah,
with our advanced society.
absolutely. Yeah. And we don't even bother with ants, like, okay, as long as they don't harm us, like, okay, whatever, it doesn't matter, right?
And that's kind of my argument with AI, right? Not only will we merge with AI, but it will also look at us as kind of its ancestor, right? Where, hey, I'm descended from you, and I'm going to honor your legacy, and I'm not going to
Yeah,
destroy you. That'd be ridiculous. Just like we wouldn't just
yeah,
go back and with the time machine and destroy like
yeah,
ancient
yeah,
Vedic society or ancient Greek society or
yeah,
anything like that.
yeah, 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 absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
well, let's switch to just a couple rapid fires as we kind of wrap up. What's a book that greatly influenced your life?
Well, many, but the Bhagavad Gita is a great one.
Mm,
It's a Hindu scripture. Then Principles of Work from Ray Dalio. So Principles
ah,
of Work and Life from Ray Dalio. That's a fascinating book.
I love that. Ray Dalio also practices TM. Just a little plug there.
Yes, yes, exactly.
And I think they provide it as an employee benefit at Bridgewater for
Mm,
anybody who wants to take it. I don't
yeah.
think they force people to take it, but anybody who wants to.
I
So
wish we could force people to do it.
yeah, like kind of teach it in school, like a
Yeah,
multidisciplinary meditation
mm,
course for
yeah, yeah,
everybody as they enter high school. Say that's about where when you
exactly.
need it, eighth grade, ninth grade.
Yeah,
It's like, hey,
yeah,
we're going to take a course. It's called meditation, and we're going to
yeah,
introduce
yeah,
you to all the kinds of meditations,
yeah,
and maybe one sticks. For me, TM, I wish I've done. I did Tibetan stuff. I did Insight, Zazen. Like all of them, loving
yeah,
kindness,
yeah,
Lamrim, and I had a practice throughout my 30s. I'm in my 40s now, but it wasn't until I found TM I was like, oh, this is
mm,
amazing. This is
yeah,
what I wish I found 20 years ago.
yeah.
I love that idea. What's gosh, I don't even know where to go. The conversation's been so good. How do you want to close it?
Um, it's up to you. I mean, I can just say we are at a turning point in our life in the history of humanity. AI is going to change the world. A few quotes I will share. The CEO of IBM has said that AI is going to add about 10 trillion, which is $10,000 billion to the world economy by 2030, in
Mm,
the next 7 years. That's the biggest wealth creation opportunity anybody has faced. And on the flip side, the CEO of Google and many other prominent people have said, if you don't use AI today, then probably your business is not going to exist in the next 5 years.
yeah.
So the opportunity is there, but the implications are also there. So I always tell people, don't give in to the fear, don't give in to the misinformation, embrace it, and take advantage of this opportunity.
Yeah. Well, this has been an awesome conversation. What's the best way to get in touch with you, and who would you like to talk to?
LinkedIn will be the best, or you can visit my website, manujaggarwal.com. Um, People who are innovators who want to, change the way things are done in their industry, in their company, in their lives. AI is not just for businesses. Like we use AI to even transform lives. As I shared my story from $2 a day to a global thought leaders. A lot has to do with AI. A lot has
Yeah.
to do with how I implemented technology in my own personal life.
Well, it reminds me of we had this phrase in enterprise software or enterprise tech in the last decade or two, which is digital transformation.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
now it's going to be AI transformation.
yeah.
Like, how do we
Exactly.
take a look at all the things we're doing and
Yeah,
rethink it with AI?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So get in touch with Manuj if you want to do that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you.
for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Absolutely.